Nancy remains a side character almost throughout Cross Season 1's runtime until the show reveals the hidden truth about her identity and real motives. Created by Ben Watkins, Amazon's Cross Season 1 is based on James Patterson's Alex Cross book series. Despite being a book adaptation, the show sets out to etch its identity by borrowing only a few major characters and story beats from the source material. However, when it comes to its villains, it introduces original ones who never appear in the James Patterson books. While the main villain, Ed Ramsey, in Cross Season 1, has nothing to do with the titular character's past but proves to be a clever serial killer, the secondary villain, Nancy, is far more intricately connected to the protagonist's history. Her identity and motives remain shrouded almost throughout the show's runtime as she works from behind the scenes and pulls many strings. However, as Cross Season 1 reaches its ending moments, her plan and true intentions become clearer. Nancy is actually the mother of Deirdre Norman, who died in prison after Alex testified at her trial. She convinced Deirdre to take the fall for Peter. Miss Nancy threatening Alex Cross in Cross. While trying to understand who might have killed his wife, Alex Cross recovers an old tape of one of his testimonies in court. In the testimony, he concludes that a female killer, Deirdre Norman, who murdered a man after inviting him for a date, cannot refit into society. He says that even though therapy might help her, a psychopath like her can never be fully cured and needs to be behind bars for the rest of her life. The judge trusts Cross' insights and gives the girl a life sentence. After being sent to prison, Deirdre was assaulted by her fellow prisoners, leading her to die by suicide. Cross deduces that a man named Peter, who often visited her prison, is trying to avenge her death by targeting his family. However, when he meets Peter's case manager, she reveals that Peter and Deirdre often met her with a woman who was their street mother. Although he initially struggles to figure out who this street mother is, he eventually learns she is Miss Nancy, his son's new piano teacher. When Nancy manages to corner Cross and his family in the final episode of the Amazon Prime Video detective show, Cross confronts her by saying that she is responsible for Deirdre's death. He reveals that after Peter killed a man, Nancy convinced Deirdre to take the blame, believing that the jury and the judge would be relatively lenient with her. However, Alex Cross' testimony convinced the judge to punish her like a hardened criminal, which eventually led to her death. Refusing to hold herself accountable, Nancy blamed Alex Cross and hoped to avenge Deirdre's death. Why Nancy and Peter killed Maria Cross? They wanted to avenge Deirdre's death. Nancy's grief seems to manifest as anger as she sets out to seek revenge. Instead of holding herself responsible for convincing Deirdre to take the blame for Peter's actions, Nancy blames Alex Cross. Therefore, to make him feel the pain of losing a loved one, she asks Peter to murder Cross' wife, Maria. Maria had nothing to do with the criminal world but became a mere target because of her connection to Alex Cross. Despite getting Alex Cross' wife out of the way and inflicting enough pain on him, Nancy struggles to deal with her own grief. She believed revenge would relieve her from the guilt of being responsible for Deirdre's imprisonment. However, when she continues to feel the heavy burden of Deirdre's death even after killing Maria, she sets out to formulate an even bigger plan to harm Alex Cross and his family. Nancy's real plan for Alex and his kids at the cabin explained. Nancy wanted Alex to feel the pain of losing a child. After Peter attacks Alex Cross' mother, Cross fears for the safety of his children and thinks about moving them to a safe house before his wife's killer targets them. This is when Miss Nancy volunteers to keep them at her home. Since Alex Cross and his family trust her, they agree that it would be a good idea to keep the children at her place because the killer would not know her whereabouts. Little do they realize that Miss Nancy is one of the killers. When Cross later learns the truth about Nancy's connection to his wife's murder, he rushes to her home to save his children. However, to his dismay, Nancy stays one step ahead and eventually gains the upper hand. With his two kids at gunpoint, she asks him to choose one of them, hoping to inflict the same pain that she felt when she had to choose between Peter and Deirdre. Alex Cross asks her to leave his kids alone and take him, but she refuses to show mercy. Nancy's twisted revenge plan forces Alex Cross to make an impossible choice, but he still manages to manipulate the situation to his advantage. Why Nancy killed herself in Cross Season 1's ending. Nancy realized only she was responsible for Deirdre's death. Cross looks over at the police captain in Cross episode 6-1. When Alex Cross exposes the truth behind what Nancy did and how she manipulated Deirdre into taking the blame for Peter's crime, Nancy realizes it was her fault all along. A part of her always knew that Deirdre went to prison because of her. However, she remained in denial and tried to hold Alex Cross accountable to ensure she did not have to live with the guilt of Deirdre's death. Her confrontation with Alex in Cross Season 1's ending forces her to accept the truth: she was responsible for Deirdre's imprisonment. Unable to handle the guilt that comes with this acceptance, Nancy dies by suicide in Cross Season 1's final moments.